even during the holiday season, things are busy. The sisters are in basketball. We're in a Jersey in December. Okay, because this is going to be a hot episode, right? Okay. Dante Bullhauer, Jamie Bullhauer. We're here, both creatives, both in the creative world. Today we're talking technique versus
artist.
Yeah,
artistry. Yeah.
So he already cracked his open before the show, so I'll just go ahead and there we go. I have a coffee here, a little wonky setup, but
it's kind of thirsty.
This is fair. Always good time for a bubbler. Anyway, technique versus kind of artists, like artistry, kind of your creative, I guess, style almost.
Yeah.
In a way. That's what we're talking about today. I have thoughts about this.
Yeah, I know. And in this case, this is based off of an article I came across by Alex Cook, Why Artistry is Harder Than Technique. And it happened to be a photography-based article, which I still, I try to learn from, and we talked about that too earlier, for different stuff. And in the video and the article, it was really interesting, and I sent it to Dante after I read it, and he was talking about the comments he had gotten on his photos, and a couple of them, and one in particular that he uses as an example, and got all these technique comments like, "Hey, your sky doesn't have much definition in it," and as if he's not, and I've looked up some of his other stuff, like he's a good photographer, but these people are like, "Hey dude, your sky is not good." And in that, he's just like, the balance, finding that balance between the technique of what you're doing, but the art, what you want to capture. And the photo he uses when he shows the process, I was just like, oh yeah, the edited photo is artistically a much better message than the raw, where you can see the clouds and everything like that. So that's where our discussion, or where this week's discussion comes from.
Yeah. We have touched on this in tidbits in other episodes in terms of know the rules so you know how to break them. That kind of leans into this topic. I think, especially doing a lot of sports stuff, it is pretty easy to learn the technique. If you put in 10, 20 hours a week, a couple weeks in, you will know the techniques of writing. You'll know the poetry forms. You'll know.
I've got things to say. I got things to say about poetry.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I won't touch on that because I know AB. But anyway, with photography, you can learn composition pretty easily. You can
rule of thirds.
Yeah, how to take a photo. The technique part is not that complicated, and you can learn it online. You can learn it, just try and learn it. It's pretty simple and not easy, but simple enough to follow that most people, if they put time into it, they'll be able to understand it.
Yes.
Where the whole know the rules so you know how to break them comes in, I think leans into the artistry, and where that's how you stand out from everybody that just does technique stuff. You can make a hype video a lot of different ways, but my artistry, we have a live audience here, sorry.
Yeah, you do.
The mute button on the bottom of the remote, you hit the mic button. Mocha's messing with the remote, the whole big thing. Anyway, anybody can learn kind of the basics of a hype video, but my kind of artistry is kind of these lights and the colors that I use with them.
Yeah.
That is kind of what defines the Dante Bullhauer media hype video type thing. And so that is so different from just learning the technique. It's learning how you develop kind of your style and your brand of work. And it's hard, when you look at one photo or one video or something, and you want to say the sky's blown out, this, that, the other. I almost feel like if you really want to understand the artist, you have to look at their whole body of work or a larger body of work.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand why they did what they did
Right,
in just
and-
one piece of work.
And that was one of the thoughts I had of like, I'm sure those comments came from people that don't know your whole work. And which I had to go, because this is the first time, but I went and looked at stuff and, but it was just kind of funny. It was like, they're like, hey, your sky's not good. And this guy is a pretty good photographer. And I like his art, like the message that he has for that. But I think thinking of the technique, because again, we're live, bro. Because of the sports things and your nature ones, I actually also thinking of the technique versus the art, because you are an athlete, that knowledge, which would be technique, plays into how you can capture tone, and you know when something's coming up. Like you understand the game enough to know, oh, I gotta start rolling. I gotta capture here. This is could be, just the other day you reshared maybe it was a memory of that touchdown with the toes right on the edge. And you have to just like
knowing that's almost kind of an advanced technique of understanding, like, okay, if they're on the 10-yard line, I don't want to be at the line of scrimmage because I'm going to miss whatever the best photo is. I want to be at the back of the end zone catching the touchdown. Or for basketball, like that photo of that state championship where I'm up in the crowd was kind of a lazy shot by me because I was just editing, and I was like, oh snap, whatever. But at the same time, I could have gone down there to the court and I've shared this photo 1,000 times where all the other photographers are, but I wanted to get the atmosphere of that shot and understanding what the look would be, what the crowd would do if they made it. Like that's kind of plays into technique, also plays a little bit into style, but yeah, that's part of the reason why I feel I'm so popular kind of in the sports world is because I was an athlete and I know the photos that I wanted to have.
Yeah.
There's a reason that our live audience, my mom took photos of every game, and there's a reason I have that dunk one as one of my computer wallpapers. She actually did a good job. It captures the atmosphere because it's the kind of the wide shot. It's me in the center frame. Like those are the photos that I wish that I had, and throughout my whole career.
Yeah.
At state, my senior year, I think I've seen 0 photos from the state championship other than 2 from the newspaper, I think. I know as an athlete, I want to see those photos, and I know what kind of photos I want to see. I don't want to see, no, I don't tribute, but I don't want to see me just diving for a loose ball. I want to see me when I got that and one the first, those types of things, and that just kind of understanding your scenario because I was an athlete helps immensely with how I capture and the technique that I use shooting sports, whether it's photo or video or graphics.
Yeah. And so in the article and some of that, Alex talks about that. And the one part that really stuck out, another part that stuck out to me was that he kind of knew the picture he has is of a solo individual walking, and the Golden Gate Bridge is in the back. And he wipes out the sky kind of, and there's a much more white scale. I don't know if this is where I don't know enough about photography. But he's talking about when he was in the field or when he was taking that, he just took the raw photo. He understood what he wanted to actually say, but he's like, I still just took the raw photo because I didn't want to overexpose then at the moment and regret what I did, regret that how it came out. And so I was just like, that's still a part, even knowing the techniques, but being the artist while you're involved in what you're doing. I think that is a combination that takes some time, takes knowing the rules and knowing though what your expression or what you actually visually see as an artist at that moment. Because the raw image that he used, it just is kind of just a normal tourist photo, I would say. And then he shows the edits and he does, and all of a sudden the individual walking like just the tone of being alone. Like he stands out now, and you know that it's the Golden Gate Bridge. You know in a way that there should be people like, and yet here he is, just stark in the middle, just. And I was like, yeah, that's art.
Yeah, and that's how that's how you use the technique to develop your style and your brand, and you know how to like. So I think I know he didn't overexpose the raw, because if you lose that detail taking the photo, you can't get it back.
Right.
Where while you edit, if you have that detail, you have the ability to then overexpose it, or like you have so much more flexibility. So he knew that, and instead of just saying, "Oh, I want it to be blown out and bright," he knew what he was going to do in post, using his technique and knowledge of camera and raw files and stuff, underexposed, and then went back in and applied his artistry to that afterwards.
And then it was funny though that he's talking about the comment, and it's just like people like so. And I think this happens in photography. I think this happens for you too sometimes. That people are so concerned with the technique and not actually getting the art aspect or the vibe aspect. And you know, for him to share, and he was kind of funny. He's like, "Yeah, I know the sky doesn't have detail because I did that. Did you not get what the image was saying?" And in the poetry world especially, but I think in the writing world to a degree, I think we have the opposite of this vibe. We got this issue of, I'm just going to be an artist. This is just what I say. I don't care about, because honestly, lots of people who write poetry and stuff like that, they actually don't seem to have a foundation of the poetic forms that are there, and there are so many. And the other day when I was like 2 weeks ago on the Jam, I shared an old poetic form, and now I'm brain freezing. We are live, like we do, and Crypto Casually was like, I was like, it was a 13th century French poem. Oh my gosh, my brain freezing. Anyway, he's like, that sounds just like my style. And I was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was doing this. Like, this is kind of your cadence. It's more obviously the poetic form has more structure, and where you do just spoken word and stuff like that, you're free to kind of do whatever you want. But at times, knowing and having a better understanding of technique, I think would allow a lot of poets, a lot of artists, the ability to elevate their message. And that part, because I've heard so many times, I don't care about form, I just want to feel your words. I'm like, you can't sometimes feel the artistry unless it's done correctly.
Yeah, there are reasons that the techniques are there. Yes, there are times to break through and put your own spin on things, but the reasoning behind, like, there's a popular kind of color grade in like video and photo. It's like teal and orange, because scientifically they're like the complementary colors. Subconsciously, you kind of like that contrast. That's why if you notice like NFL logos, if you go through NFL logos and you study like color science, and you have like a color wheel, you can just look one up on Google. They're all on the opposite side or next to each other. It's like analogous, or I don't butchered that pronunciation. Or like complementary. So like the Broncos is orange and blue, kind of the teal orange. The Vikings is purple and yellow, which is the like right here. There are reasons behind why those techniques were established and why they are kind of a rule or law type thing, because just subconsciously that is what we like aesthetically like pleases us. So yes, you do break out of it sometimes, but I agree, this is probably a lot more, I can see it being a lot more, a lot heavier in the poetry world, but photography too, everybody has to be so accepting of whatever, that technique kind of goes out the window, and you're just like, oh, I just want to be creative. Like the stupid photo trend where it's just a blurry photo, and it's like, whoa, oh, that made me feel something. No, it didn't. There's a reason that you're supposed to take sharp photos. Like,
Yeah.
So it's almost just kind of the stigma of you can't criticize this art anymore, so I don't have to know or learn the technique because I'm just gonna do, like, this is my style, this is my brand. And it's like, there is a reason that this stuff was established, and you have to learn that before you can get to putting your artistry in. You have to learn the knowledge base before breaking through.
And I think a part of that, and many creatives and stuff, again, our definition is it is expression of who we are. Okay, and I get that. And so there we do feel like, well, this is, but that also, on a really deep level, you're just saying, well, this is as good as I am. And if you're really serious about your art and the expression that you're going to have, because it also in the poetry world, and maybe the photography, I just don't spend as much time there. The idea, every piece of art is a two-way street. Sorry, that's why you write it. Yes, it is to satisfy the muse and stuff like that, but yet we also want people to share. Oh my gosh, even, I see it in the classroom, like, oh, I can't draw it. And as soon as they draw it though, hey, Mr. Bullhauer, look at this. It's like, it's a part of the equation. So if you're really serious about who you are and what your art is, you do have to learn the science behind it, then to go and break it. I just feel that we're too and acceptance that's not a bad word. It's just, one of the reasons I like the jam, and I mentioned in the last one, is like they gave me real honest feedback when I had a bad I couldn't have gotten better if they just, oh yeah, that was good, Jamie, that was good.
They're accepting, but they're also going to be real. And like we talked about this, their best interest is for you to be at your best. They're not going to sugarcoat things just to, that's not.
And I don't want that as an artist. I want to know that when it wasn't good. And that's why I'm so appreciative of that. And I redid that whole poem and everything and delivered it 2 weeks ago, and it totally they're like, yeah. It's like, yeah, but I totally went total opposite, almost poetic form wise, with the same poem, and had a much better expression of the subject of what I wanted to deal with. And I use a somewhat modern prose, poetic form with that. The other part, though, is the reaction from the readers. So I already mentioned that he got all these technique, and he didn't share all. He was just talking about, because the sky was because you see a big contrast of that, and in the written word and stuff like that, and in poetry. Sometimes, and this is what I did in my newest book, I actually made sure I identified what the poetic form was. I didn't define it though. I didn't because sometimes some of the rules would have taken 2.5 pages. But I wanted them to know, okay, you're going to see some rules here, and this is what it's called. Movie poetry, and in the jam and stuff. In the jam, I'm known as the teach. Movie poetry, I was the king of form, and yeah.
I was known as the rebound king. So
yes, it even is. And I appreciate that people actually see that. And honestly, a little bit, I wish I would have known more about, I was a young artist too, and I was like, oh, this is just me, and then though I started to really learn my art, and I think that has elevated things.
Yeah, and it's kind of that almost the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you the less you know about a topic, the more you think you're a pro at it, and then it just kind of inverts till it matches up at the end or whatever. So there is level of understanding, like, okay, I need to apply this technique because of how I want the viewer to perceive it. And you have to be able to have that knowledge base to be able to convey that, because, so I have a video on my YouTube of me like roasting my old stuff.
Yeah.
My first ever short film that I made. I had the idea, I had the vision, I knew what I wanted it to say, but because I was still very much learning, didn't really know the technique, I didn't have style or technique. I just had a camera, I was just shooting stuff, and I was like, wow, that was sick. The message was not conveyed at all, because I did not have the knowledge to know how to. I just thought, if I have the vision, it'll just infuse itself into the video somehow. And it was just videos of grass and lake and stuff, and I was like, there, my arm hanging out the car window. I was like, that's it right there. If I were to reshoot that same kind of theme of video, it would be conveyed so differently, because I have the understanding of all that technique and stuff, and I know as a consumer how I would put that together differently. And you just don't understand that until you know that technique.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of think, going back to our earlier point about just your own style, you don't have the technique base, that mostly comes down to just, it's kind of the easy way out to just say, it's just my style.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, it is hard to learn that whole, like, starting out can be super overwhelming in any creative field, because there's those, like, once you learn the technique, you basically start all over with learning your style and defining that. And so if you can just skip half of that with the technique, that's where I think a lot of people just jump straight to, this is just what I do, this is my style, that whole thing. And it is a absolutely crucial part to learn all of that technique, knowledge, all this, the rules and laws of photography and poetry, to help convey that message to the consumer.
Yeah. It was a good article, video, and I'm sure actually each project it's never balanced, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, but at the end, it is the whole of the experience. And so sometimes you gotta be very technique wise, like in a very strict poem, like it's very heavy technique wise. And other times you're just free to be really artistic, you know, and so you just want to have the correct combination so that the finished product is received as best as it can.
Yeah, and it is a very different ratio every time. Like this photo of the Tetons right here, there's not a ton of ways I can put style into the composition. I mean, it's just the mountains out there. Like, it's just kind of, you kind of have to do. So I have the fence in the foreground, the mountains in the second third, and the sky in the top third. That's kind of all you can really do with that. I put my style into the editing part. So that, I didn't put really much of my creativeness into the actual taking, but then in the edit, the mountains are blue, the sky's there, all that stuff. You can find ways to infuse your style at different parts of the process. And just when you recognize that not everything is going to be super heavy technique or super heavy, like it's just going to be a fluctuating ratio, that's where you can really kind of hone in where to put, like, how to balance that ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll link that article in the description. You guys can check it out. Good article. If I see any of you guys comment on my skies, I'm going to be very upset. Love having you guys on the show. Happy holidays again. We will have, I think, one more before Christmas out, and then we'll have our Christmas special basically next time. So that was The Creative Moment, Season 5, Episode 3. Dante Bohar, Jamie Bohar. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We're also our personal socials. He posts a lot of poetry. I post a lot of photos on Twitter, Instagram, that whole thing.
Hey, I do put a lot of photos on Instagram.
He throws down on the photo game. He did 365 photos, one per day for a year. And
a couple times. I've actually done it a couple times.
It was a stimulation overload. But follow us on there. We post a lot of our work. We share the links to these podcasts, all that stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks.